Coming to you from the historic Hart Building in Marysville, California, in Studio 93, In the Tank with Fish, with your host, Bob Fischetti.
All right, we're here for another, I always call it adventure. And we are in another adventure. So I always have to say for In the Tank with Fish, like, subscribe, comment. There's 4 things. I should Kurt, you should get cue cards. Hey, Fish, say these things.
No problem.
All right. So we'll get those cue cards so that coming up, I'll always remember what to say. But today, my guest is, and Andrea unfortunately had to be in San Francisco, which very nature of saying that makes it unfortunate for me. But I hope she's having a good time anyway. But today I have with me the owner, correct? Owner.
Yes, sir.
Of Bi-County Ambulance. And I had the privilege of interviewing this guy in the morning, and I thought, I have got to get him into a podcast. So Alex Bumpus, how are you doing, Alex?
I'm doing well. Doing well, Fish. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, man, I had you in, and you. I didn't realize that you had been in this area as long as you have. And actually, it was your father, you said, that started Bi-County Ambulance. But one of the things I want to talk to you about is how you ended up working all over within the company.
Oh.
It wasn't like, your dad said, okay, next week I'm retiring, here, it's yours, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like that. You really had an opportunity to understand the business, and not everybody gets that. So I guess I could say your dad gave you the business, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No. So talk a little bit about, where'd you grow up at. Sure. and how this happened.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Yuba City. I don't remember the houses that we lived in when prior to 5, but at 5 years old, we moved into this house in South Yuba City, and my mom still lives there.
That's cool.
And I never really knew as a kid, what your dad does, the full understanding. It's like, oh, yeah, it's ambulance. People were like, no. And I was like, been there, done that. My dad was like the backup supervisor by the time so that would have been like late 80s. And I didn't realize how big he had grown where he was at, starting at, one ambulance, winning a contract in 1980 to you go to 1988, and he had expanded with merging and other partners to having 13 ambulance companies from Yuba and Sutter, and then south into Sacramento and Placer and all of that area, to where he had a shortage of paramedics. He started a paramedic school in 1988, and then 1994, all of his partners were significantly older than he was, and they said, we want the money. It was their group versus another group of who was going to take out and buy the other one. And so 1994, they had a contract negotiation of purchasing, and he said, I can't give up my 2 that I started with, my 2 counties. So I said, not a problem. They handed him another contract with only 11, and they signed it all away, and that's what became AMR, and they took the paramedic school with them. And then he decided to, he's going to keep the ambulance service and then get into farming. So he had some
I like
friends.
this guy, right? It's like, how old was he when he decided to do that?
Oh, shoot. He had to be probably mid-40s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he started out, right, if you go way back to when he was 15, he was working in peach orchards with what became his business partner, Ken Van Winkle. And he was an EMT.
Ken was Rip's son, right? I knew he'd get that.
And so when they actually went to go bid for the contract, Kelly was maybe 19 or 20.
Gosh.
And they won it. And then they go, shoot, we don't have an ambulance. And so Ken actually had to sell the peach orchard to get enough money to get the startup money for the ambulance and all the rest of it. So you move into the mid 90s and I'm, 12 or 13. So I actually grew up, first jobs were working out in the cotton fields, and he had brought a cotton gin up into Sutter with 2 other partners. And so first I got to learn that piece. And then at 16, when I got my license, it was, hey, you get to go shut the pumps off out in the middle of nowhere at 3 a.m. because I'm not waking up to go do it, kind of thing. And
but I'll give you a car.
Yeah. You can have the truck, but you got to go shut
exactly.
pumps off. And so then after that happened, I had graduated high school, and I went off to college, and I didn't do too well on my own at 17, and I came back and was working, and I was like, nah, I don't need to work for my dad. And then I was broke, and I was like, all right, I need a job. And
You're like the prodigal son.
Oh, man.
Right?
The first thing he said was, you got to cut your hair. I had long hair, and he goes, and then I had to prove it. I had to take my hat off and show that I had cut my hair. But I had worked in the mechanic shop, working on ambulances, changing the oil and doing that. And then he goes, all right, you need to learn the billing department. So then I worked in the billing department, and I was entering patient
First time your fingernails had ever been cleaned.
Right. And then it was, okay, you need to learn how you answer the calls to send the ambulances. So I worked, 6 months to a year in dispatch. And then finally it was like, all right, you can work as an EMT. And so now I'm 22, freshly married, enjoying working as an EMT. And I'd come in, I'd work night shifts, and then when I got off, I'd do the coffee thing with my dad and some of his other partners and whatever they were doing of real estate and the farming. And
your dad was a major entrepreneur.
The list was crazy. So I did his obituary, and we went through everything, and it was right. Like, okay, you've got Bi-County Ambulance. That's the start. And then he and Ken got into real estate and buying this or buying that. And then he opened Shakey's, where Red Robin is. So I have a picture.
Shakey's Pizza. Yeah.
I'm like 4 or 5 at the ribbon cutting ceremony with my dad and Glenn Shakey. He likes to party, so there was Rugby's Bar here in Marysville. He was tied in with Rick Davis in the cannery somehow when it was over there where Mountain Mike's Pizza's at. He had a telecommunications company, right? So he got it, and he said, cell phones are going to be the thing. And so when that first started going, and pagers were more in than cell phones. They had Beeps Happen was the name of this company, and they were selling pagers in the kiosks in malls, in Chico, here, down in Sacramento. And so he was just always, hey, this is going to do something good, and yep, we can make it happen. And he always was like, great idea, yep. And I go, all right, what's your plan? He goes, oh, we're going to figure that one out tomorrow, kind of thing, and just on to the next. And then there was farming, there was the cotton gin. What other crazy stuff? I mean, if you thought about it, he tried it.
Where did you go to high school at?
I went to Yuba City High School.
Okay, that's what I thought. And then, but when you went to EMT, was it the EMT school your dad started?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
So I took my EMT at Yuba College.
Got it. Okay.
And then I was in a paramedic program at the school he started with the guy that he put in as director. They were sitting in the office I'm in now, and they had just a massive shortage in the 80s, and that's when they were really, combining and getting large. And they said, well, we need them, so let's just make them ourselves. And
so I got to backtrack because you got a lot. So the office that you're in now was your dad's office.
Yes.
And so he owned the building. Mm-hmm. Was that part of his real estate deals?
Oh yeah, that guy.
I love this guy.
He had so many things here and there, and the rest. He had. We had what was called Pacific Coast Ambulance Sales because he merged with all these different ambulance companies. He ended up getting controlling ownership in all of them, right, as part of their deal and negotiations. So he was actually a car dealer, And Pacific Coast Ambulance Sales just sold ambulances to all of the different companies.
To the plumbing doctor.
Well, eventually, once we worked, put too many miles on him until he goes, there's a lot of miles on those things, and he starts buying them now the way he does. But yeah, tons. So I was in paramedic school at NCTI when Katrina hit.
Oh.
And so my dad, same thing. He really liked New Orleans, and he had a place down there, and he goes, no one's helping him. And I was on an ambulance. I was like, all right, what do you want to do? And he goes, I think we're going to go there. And I was like, oh, okay. So I called my...
You mean literally drive the ambulances there?
Oh, yeah. So no one's helping. Everything's bad. It's people are dying and they're pleading for help. So I was supposed to work 1 to 11 o'clock that night. And I think it's 3 o'clock. And I called my wife, who's 7 months pregnant. I said, I need you to pack a bag for me for 2 weeks.
Man.
And I'm driving my ambulance. I'm like, I'm going to be by in about 15 minutes because we're leaving. And we took a caravan of 5 ambulances and a disaster trailer. And that's when it really opened my eyes of like how you can just go out and provide help, because there's the Army's there controlling intersections, and they're like, come on through. I didn't have clearance. They're like, sure. And there was 10 of us, 12 of us with 5 ambulances and the disaster trailer. And we set up on at his house that he had there right off of Bourbon Street. And I told you he liked to go out and have fun. And so everything's shut down. There's no access to anything. And we just started taking care of people in the French Quarter. And then all of a sudden, it was like my dad, Kelly and I, we went down and we're trying to figure out who we could talk to about getting some kind of FEMA number or something. And I go, that guy looks kind of important. He goes, oh, sure is. That's the mayor, right? So then we go up to Ray Nagin and he goes, hey, we're here to help. And we've kind of taken over this place. Who do we need to go talk to? And we go up to like the 20th story of this hotel to talk with the fire department. And they're doing airdrops with helicopters with radios, and I was like, this is crazy. And Kelly's like, nope, we're fine. And we ended up staying a little over 6 weeks.
Wow.
We did immunizations for over 500 people. And it was wild. Just 4 houses down was a Dr. Lutz. And he kind of took us under his wing, and he had access to a lot of people and things. And then all of a sudden, we're transporting to the U.S. Iwo Jima and sitting in with like really high level people giving us handouts of all of these phone numbers that no one else is supposed to ever have, because the doc was invited, and he goes, oh, you're going to drive us. I was like, oh, okay, perfect. My brother drove an ambulance onto the Iwo Jima and sat in with high-level clearance guys, and we were just there to help. And it worked out well, and that was my first intro to a disaster that I was actually an employee, So in 86, when we had the big flood, and in 97, I wasn't old enough to help, so I left. And that's kind of the deal that our family has, is everybody has to leave so that we can just go to work. And so when we had 2017 with the wall of water that was going to come to it and the chaos that ensued, I got notified real early. My family left town and we went to work. And same thing, we moved 450 convalescent patients in about 42 hours.
I think I told you we talked about this because I was still in the military at the time.
Yeah.
And so we were on the 2nd floor. That was where our studio was at the time. And I could see the ambulances rolling. And I'm like, they're emptying.
Yeah.
They're moving patients to another location. Mm-hmm. It ended up being, just in case.
Yeah.
But that's really what that's about. Because if you wait till something happens, and so that's why I really appreciated the way that call went out. I actually got the call because I was in the military, so I got the call, and I called Sutter County, and I said, hey, what's going on with the dam, right?
Yeah.
How do you know? Well, because My colonel said, I got to stay here because
Oh,
I'm on
yeah.
the radio. But it is, you look out there and you guys were just, it seemed like you had 1,000 ambulances. I know you didn't, but I mean, you guys were.
We had all 25 of ours going 24/7.
Darn.
And then we had called in, I think it was 6 strike teams, so 30 more ambulances. And then all of them would get funneled through my dispatch and be sent on whatever mission they needed to go on so that we could still handle the 911 calls, which heftily increased when, people are getting out of their cars and climbing trees because water's coming, and then the convalescent home thing was, it was a big movement of people, and you're stuck because it's not just take all these people in this facility and move them. It's gender specific, so it's men and women, and where can they go? Because they can't just go to anywhere. You need a facility that says, yeah, we can handle what their needs are. So the only male-female combo that can be housed are couples that are married. And the rest, so I had Sierra Sac Valley.
So did you have some of those people lying? Oh, we're married.
Yeah. Right. Well,
we want to go to the same place.
So I had the local emergency medical services authority set up shop in my office. We had a complete tracking system. He tied in with other emergency medical service authorities so that we could figure out where they all went. And then another thing that Kelly had started is we have a company called Yuba Sutter Call Center. So we're just an answering service for anyone that wants to have a human answer the phone, and it's what helps supplement.
Is that what I got when I called?
That was my front office. That was the front
By
office.
the way, that girl was very kind.
Good.
She was
Good.
laughing because I'm like, I'm Fish. What? It's like, and I said, it's Bob Fischetti, 93. She said, so. And I knew, look, they're not just going to give your number out. So I said, look, Alex is supposed to be in here. Can you get a hold of him? And here's my number so we can call my cell, right? Because I knew you were here because Kurt said, man, we missed that phone call because we're running back and forth. I don't think about it, right? So when you said that, I went, was that the call center? Right?
So the call center, that's an additional. So we'll answer for doctors, law offices, just anybody that wants you to answer the phone.
So this begs the question, Alex, how much are you like your dad? Are you kind of, this is okay, we got this, we don't need to keep looking for stuff?
Well, sort of, right? So the same thing my dad had, with just some of the stuff. There's a couple of just regular property rental company, properties that we were renting out and using a rental service, and that company and I got in a bit of a disagreement back in 2017, and I said, all right, well, I'm going to do this myself. And so out of spite, I started a property management company, and now we manage 700 doors. And so because of that, it was, well, I guess we need a construction company. So then I started one of those. I have very strong, amazing partners that help.
Well, that's 90% of it.
Yeah.
When you have people that you can work with, I was very fortunate to Kurt, who does, they never see him, but we talk about him. But Kurt had the same job in the military I did. We were both security forces, different time period. But I found Kurt. He was working. It turns out he was a cameraman. He worked for a channel up in Chico. Channel 24, worked for Comcast, right? And he was working at a business, but it wasn't in that field. And so because I had met him, it was like, oh, so it really is. I can't do what he does. I don't want to do what he does.
Yeah.
I do what I do, right? And it's like, so when you find people that are good people that will work with you, it just...
Oh, yeah. If you have a team and you have trust, and it's you take your skills and attributes and let me do mine. So I manage the contracts, the formations, make sure everything's lined up, do the finances, and then it's, hey, this is what we've got going, and we, meet and talk regularly. So my sole focus, not my sole focus, but my main focus is Bi-County Ambulance always. That's, it's the most important one, right? There's a legacy piece to it.
Yeah, I believe that. I do have to ask, though, with all the companies, did your dad ever call anything Bumpus engineer. Did he ever use his own name?
So there was, yeah. Kelly was one of the smartest guys I've ever dealt with, but he only would focus on certain things. So, like, he'd be talking to the attorney and they go, "What do you want to call this company?" And he'd look over and he goes, "LaserFax LLC." And they're like, "I don't know if you can do that." He goes, "We'll see if it's available." Just like whatever would come. But there was there was one company where it was the initials, Kenneth, Mike, and Kelly. And then there was one that was Van Bump Port, which is 3 last names kind of mixed together because those were the 3 guys doing something. But it'd be like, "Oh, hey, what are you going to do this? Oh, shoot. Let's call it Marlin something." Well, we were standing out front of Marlin Court, and it's just, that one will work. Just put it on paper and let's go, And
oh, man.
that guy, he nonstop, and it just always was.
Is he still around, Kelly?
No, he passed last July.
So your dad and him really started all this.
Yeah.
And they both passed.
Yeah.
When did your dad pass?
Kenneth passed in 1994, and my dad passed last year.
Oh, that's recent. Man, I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh,
but he left a legacy.
Well, it was
your dad should have been on the front page news somewhere.
I've actually got old Yuba Sutter News magazines that they used to make of, kind of the start out process and what he was doing, because he changed kind of the structure of emergency services. So back when it first started and you had your mother jugs and speed, it was, "Oh, we have a call. I have the ambulance. I'm going to go drive to Fish's house and pick Fish up. And then we're going to drive to the patient. Then we're going to take him to the hospital. Then I'm going to drop you back off at home and all the rest of it." And he goes, "Nope, we're going to put them together. We can do this better." And so it was putting them at stations, and they'd work 3 days straight. They'd be on for 72 hours. They'd have a place they could have a space to roam. There was one station off Tea Garden, one of the first ones they ever had. And, when you're young and life was way different, they caught a raccoon and had a pet raccoon in the station, and it was mean as heck, I guess, They are everybody.
I don't care what anybody says. Raccoons are not nice.
And so they go, "Oh, you don't want to pet that." And then they'd be bleeding and they go, "We told you didn't want to pet that." And, they'd be playing softball. I remember my dad had called me. It was maybe 2006 or 7. And he goes, "I don't know what you're complaining about." I said, "Listen, you had 3 ambulances, and I remember going to watch you guys play softball." Well, we have 20, and I'm running, 70 calls a day. Life's a different, we don't have time for softball, But he decided, hey, we're going to team up with Ruth Pentinel, who was an RN at Rideout Hospital. And we're going to teach these guys more skills, and we're going to be able to offer a different service, because it was just go pick them up and it was taxi them to the hospital. Mm-hmm. And there was one fire agency that, and it's funny because the fire chief was great friends with my grandfather, but he goes, "Oh, you guys think your doctor's wearing stethoscopes around your necks. Just put them in the car and drive," kind of thing. But he had made a lot of changes. He went to the state, worked on legislation to make a lot of changes. And in fact, he was one of the guys that helped design the first ambulance driver's license test that DMV requires you to take. He was across the board involved in kind of paving the trail from it being just a transportation to a full medical transportation for our community and our area.
Which is really critical, because we know in a medical emergency, time is not your friend.
Oh, yeah.
And so the more that arrives on the scene, as opposed to, well, we'll just go get them, that's all that block of time.
Yeah.
So having EMTs, I've only been in an ambulance once, and it was Bi-County.
All right.
And they were very cool at what they did. Right. And I was just kind of like, this is fun. Right. And it was like,
not too many people think it's fun, but yeah.
And so, you're very grateful when improvements happen, but that's got to be, Alex, for you, it's got to be amazing that you had the dad you did.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And be able to go, my dad could look beyond where he was at all the time.
Oh.
And then he hooked up with a friend who was also very visionary and entrepreneurial, right? And you're like, you got to be kidding. These two guys were unstoppable.
Oh.
So was your mom ever really involved in the business, or was she kind of like, well, whatever you want to do, I love you, and so go do it?
So my dad's from, born and raised in Live Oak, and everybody in his family was law enforcement. So when they're like, what the heck are you trying to be a volunteer firefighter for? They kind of
oh yeah, because you're friends.
A bunch of heck about it, and he wanted to be the volunteer firefighter because he enjoyed it, but also he could just set his pager off and he could leave school because he hated being in school. Oh, got a call, see you later. And then my mom grew up in Linda. They had moved. My grandfather was in the Air Force, and they moved out, came out to Beale when she was 2, I think. And so my mom had a job at Denny's right here, and there wasn't too many options, and Denny's was the place where you went for breakfast, coffee, lunch, everything. So
for the Grand Slam.
Yeah, right. And so my mom was a waitress there, and my dad was working there, and that's where they connected and met. And then they got married. And
okay, so before they got married, I want you to tell the story about your dad didn't have his own vehicle.
Oh,
he drove the ambulance.
No, they didn't have enough to have to. So they was dating my mom. And she always had to have a dime because, back then, payphone was a dime in her pocket because this was before he'd made the change to say these two guys have to stay together. So he'd be on a date with my mom and he'd drop her at a payphone so she could call someone to come pick her up, and he'd go get his partner. And
because the ambulance was his vehicle.
That's it. They didn't have anything, like everything they had, they put into this.
Your mom's a good woman.
Yeah.
Because I don't know a lot of women that would have said, oh, that's okay. Just, I got a dime. Drop me off somewhere. Right?
Wherever, And so that was kind of the deal. And then she had to, keep working because her job paid the rent. Because everything was going into this company, and we got to keep paying employees, and we get paid last, and some months we didn't get paid, and that's just how they grew up.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how old they were, but they got married in 1977. So my mom was 20, and my dad was 24 maybe. And then my sister was born in 1979. And so my mom would work Denny's pregnant and then go work the graveyard shift doing dispatching. So that way they didn't have to pay another person, So it was all hands on.
How many kids are in your family?
There's 3 of us.
3, 2 boys and a girl?
Yes, sir.
And the girl's the oldest?
My sister's the oldest.
So is she very, like, older sisters have a tendency to be a little bit mom-like with the boys.
Oh, yeah.
So has she been...
They always know more than I do.
Oh yeah, exactly.
That's just how it goes. She's great, and I love her. I don't think it's just expected, and so.
But after the passing of your father, so before that happened, though, you really were already involved in the company. So it wasn't like all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I got to do this. So was the rest of the family involved at all?
Yeah. So back right after Katrina happened, so that's 2005. So it was 2006. My dad came down with cardiomyopathy, where the heart just expands way too large. And so it's kind of like you stretched out a rubber band and then it loses its elasticity.
Oh, okay.
And so his ejection factor output was at like 9, and for us it's at like 60 or 70, right? So it was bad, and he was at ride out, and they're like, hey, your dad's gonna die, and I was like, well, I don't really accept that. And of course, you have attorneys in the room and business partners are in the room of, hey, what's gonna happen? And he ended up getting a pacemaker defibrillator put in, and he was holding 20 pounds of fluid, but it was all in his torso. His legs weren't showing a lot of edema. His arms weren't. So they got the water off. They got the pacemaker defibrillator, and they're like, "Hey, you're gonna live." And so the cardiologist in town, I grew up with his daughter going to school and everything else, and he goes back to go visit him, and he goes, "Hey, good news, Kelly, you're gonna live." And man, he started cussing this doc, and he goes, "I don't understand. Whenever I tell someone to live, they're happy." And he goes, "I just signed my company over to a 22-year-old. Like," he's like, "I went out and bought a brand new car because I thought I'd make one payment. Now you're going to tell me," so that's just him. And
now I'm going to live.
Yeah. So he couldn't do the stress, and he had to make some significant changes to how he was living. So he didn't walk back what he did when he thought he was going to die.
Which was probably smart.
Yeah.
Because then he didn't have to carry that.
So it was okay, what's going to happen? And so he put a 22-year-old into running this company.
Which was you.
Yeah. And then he goes, "And I'm moving to Sacramento." And I go, "What? I can't leave. Like, I'm trying to tell everybody I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what the heck I'm doing." And he goes, "You'll be fine." And he left to Sacramento.
That's called throwing you in the deep end.
Hard.
Alex, it's like, sometimes, though, it's the best thing for us. It doesn't seem so at the time. But sometimes, you're going to find out if you can swim.
Oh, sure. Well, and then I'd call him and I'd go, "Hey, I got this problem." And he goes, "All right, what are your options?" And I was like, "Well, I can do this or I can do this." And he goes, "Cool, tell me which one you picked." And he'd hang up. I was like, okay, that didn't help, and then maybe 3 or 4 years after that, maybe longer, 5, he goes, "All right, I'm moving to Southern California." And I'm like, "You can't leave, I need my safety net." And then when we'd talk, all he would do is tell me about how great the weather was. So then I'm hanging up on him like, I got to
You are no help, man. You are no help.
But it was, he had done things of like, one of the deals he did was, he goes, "Hey, you need to go find, this X amount of money right now, or you're not going to make payroll." And I was like, "What do you mean find money? What's going on here?" And I had to go talk to some people and, make a deal and borrow money at a way that I didn't want to.
Oh, my gosh.
And then I go, "Okay, well, this is what I did." And he goes, "Cool. Now go give it back because that was a test and it only cost you, X to do it." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, now you know what you can do if you have to." I was like,
"Man, I love your dad.
You put me through so much stress that didn't need to happen." He goes, "Yeah, but now you're good."
There's such a truth in that. We don't think about that. And, obviously you were young.
Yeah.
But even though you said, well, I need you here, he really was there. Mm-hmm. If you really needed. Yeah. But he didn't quit training you. He didn't quit, to be honest, throwing you in the deep end.
Oh, the whole time. Up until the very end. It was always, man. Always. And then just to see, right? Just to test. Are you paying attention? And he still, right? The mind was always still there. So he could keep track of things and then follow up and, "Hey, what's this?" And, a big part is you always have to be honest. The best thing to do is tell on yourself if something bad happens.
Yep.
And the entire mantra of Bi-County Ambulance is the patient comes first, because you got to take care of the patient, and then you can take care of the company, and then the company takes care of the employees and us. And he goes, "You get out of that flow, you'll fail."
Yeah.
I promise you.
Yeah.
So that's...
So was Alex, was he the same way with your brother and sister? Or did he just kind of single you out? I mean, because sometimes parents, they see different qualities because no two kids, how many kids have you got?
I have 5.
Okay.
None of them are the same.
None of them. And so.
And some can handle harder situations better than others.
That's it.
I think it was just circumstance, right? My sister was off in college, and I went down south to college, and the first year I just had too much fun, so I was going to Yuba College and having to make up for some mistakes. And my brother, he was still in high school, and so it was just at that point in time I was the one. So when I was 22, my brother was 17. I think he was a junior in high school.
Which at that age is a big difference.
Yeah. And so it was just here. And so there was some tough parts because immediately I'm like, I'm laying down the rules. And so, like I said, not too many people call me Al, but my sister's friends would call me Big Al because they'd be like, "Hey, what did Big Al have to say?" And I was like, "No, we don't need any of these problems." You know,
Is there a song you can call me Al?
Right. So it was just that point in time. There wasn't anybody else but me. And then eventually my sister became an ICU nurse and moved out of state. My brother became an EMT. In fact, he got his EMT license on the way. He caravanned with us to Katrina. He was 17, and so you can't get your certificate until you're 18.
Oh.
And so he turned 18 while we were in New Orleans, and he sent his stuff in an email, and he got his EMT certificate like that week.
Wow.
And, right into the fire of that. And he worked as an EMT, became a paramedic supervisor, all through the whole ranks. It's just a family deal.
Does he still live here?
He does, yes.
And your sister's out of state?
My sister has now moved back. She lives in Sacramento.
Oh, and
So
your
close.
mom's here.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a wild ride.
Oh, yeah.
What a wild ride. You know, I really wish I could have met your dad. I mean, I love, sometimes there's all kinds of, we look at dads differently.
Yeah.
Right? My dad was a rough Italian boy. Mm-hmm. And so he was really no nonsense. Somebody calls you Dago, Whopper, Guinea. If you don't whip them, I'll whip you when you get home, right? Sure. So it was kind of one of those things where you're just a tough man, World War II vet. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but there were certain qualities about my dad, right?
Oh, yeah.
He died when I was young. I was 12. And he had arterial sclerosis, right? And so, back then, he was 53 when he died. Back then they didn't have the things they have now. That they can, you live a lot longer. But the quality, my dad was a patriot. I mean, he loved this country. He was the only one of, there was 13 kids in the family. And he was the youngest and the only one born in the United States.
Oh,
the rest came over from Italy through Ellis Island. And he, fought in World War II. He was 35 years old when he went in the war. Wow. So, I mean, he was an old man. They called him Pappy. 35, and you get called Pappy, right? But he just, and we had 7 in our family, but he just absolutely, there's just certain qualities you pick from your father and you say, I can be like that. I don't care if he made mistakes. I don't care about anything else. But these qualities, my dad loved this country and he appreciated it. He only had an 8th grade education and worked for McDonnell Douglas as an inspector on the F-4 Phantom back then. Yeah, so he really, so he believed that you could make it here, but you didn't sit on your backside to do it. And so as you look at your dad, because, there's so many qualities there, right? If you had to say, this is what I admired most and this is what I find in my own life, what would that be?
Oh, man.
Which I know is a tough choice because you've already told me.
It's a tough one. There's a lot of qualities, right? Because there's parts growing up where he didn't make some of the baseball games. He didn't make some of this. And as a kid, you hold it against your dad.
Yeah.
Until you grow up and go, oh, the volume of calls, even though, I say back when you were running that, you didn't run the same volume of calls I did, but all of the billing for all 13 was being done, and there were 3 shifts, 40 billers, and each company's separate and all the rest, and that guy could just knew it. But then there'd be days where he didn't come home for 30 days, and you're like, where the hell's Dad? Well, he was working. He also had some party time, like you can't
you mentioned that.
Free one.
He did.
Yeah, but
he did know how to relax.
He did, yeah. Well, but it was one of those things that even at his celebration of life, and same thing. All siblings look at it different. I go, can't hold it all against him. He had his faults, but he he did amazing things and left a legacy that, I mean, I could only hope to leave something like that to my kids, but I'm not the trailblazer.
Well, that's it. You're going to be the way you are.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, I think of the way the military works, and a lot of times we need to consider that when they're going to take ground, they have the Air Force and the Navy will start bombing an area.
Yeah.
But when it comes to ground troops, it's the Marines that go in there.
Sure.
So the Marines take the ground. Then the Army has to keep the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And then the supply with the Air Force, they come in and can build a base. So it's, you know what I mean? So everybody comes in and does their part. And I think in life, it's like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I built this radio station, and now we're doing podcasts.
Yeah.
I'm determined to have local TV back. And it's like, well, somebody else will take it. I'm 75. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I'm going to go be with Jesus. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's
Right.
like, you know what I mean? But I would hope that my boys, I have 2 boys, I would hope there's some quality about my life that they can say, I hope I have that quality. Right?
Yeah.
Because all the other stuff, and my boys said the same thing. They said, Dad, when we were younger, you weren't around. You were working all the time. And it was like, well, yeah. You know, and nowadays, man, it's like I really have a great admiration for your mom and dad, recognizing if we're going to make it, we both got to work.
Oh, yeah.
Because as things have progressed, now they don't have a choice. People have to. It's crazy. I mean, it's not everybody can have just a one-income family.
Yeah.
So it's much more difficult for families now. But I just look at those qualities, and, you know, hear about your dad. I think I would pick, if you said to me, what would you pick? I'd say entrepreneur.
Yeah.
To me, more than anything, it's like he could see, and not just that he could see it, whoever this buddy was, they'd actually go do it.
Yeah.
I mean, on the fly. Mm-hmm. And it's like, like you said, that might not be your quality, but it certainly is one you can look at and go, that's cool.
Kelly and Kenneth thrive because Kenneth was you know, his mentor and the you know, just a big figure in his life. Is Kenneth would keep track because Kelly was just always next deal, and then he goes, no deal, we're tight, we can't afford to do this, and it'd be like, oh, we have to, and they'd have their own internal battle, and then figure it out, kind of thing, you know. And you had to learn when to say yes and when to say no. So he had a good, you know, sounding board of hey, wait a minute, let's come back down every now and then, but still let him go. The one thing that I wish, right, is my dad was unapologetic for who he was, and you either liked him or you didn't.
Yeah.
And so I'd hope to be there one day. But one of the things that always, you know, for our community especially, is if it's like, hey, we need this to get done, and you know, same thing. I said, yep, I'm on it. It's gonna get done. I don't care what I have to do.
Yeah.
It's gonna get done. And you know, one of his favorite things was it's always better to beg for forgiveness than to ask and be told no and still have to go do it. And so, you know, you take that with a little grain, and but you know, when there was a patient that was being restrained at the hospital, and they busted the buckle, and it perfectly hit this little glass piece in their fire sprinkler system and turned it on. You know, it was my guys that went over, and we're like, cool, go buy push brooms and this and that, and we'll set up and we'll just push water out of the hospital. And that's not our deal, but it's one of those, hey, you need help, we'll come help you. We'll make it work.
Yeah.
I do remember in the 97 flight, because 86 hit here, 97 Meridian got water. And it was the same thing. Hey, let's just drive out here. And then now all of a sudden I'm shaking hands with, you know, Al Gore, who flew down in a helicopter to talk. And I was like, well, how did we get here? He goes, oh, I figured he'd be there, and we'll just drive up. And I go, did you ask anybody? He goes, no, you know. But it was always one of those things that if, like, hey, we need this to get done, how can we do it? And if I say I'm going to do it, then you have to. There's no questions. You can't not do after what you've promised, whether it costs you or not. You know, and so that was one that that I take from him too.
Do you know why I ask you to do this?
Well, I mean, it's good to get the history, right? And it's good to know. It's good to hear other things. For me, I don't know. I guess why? Well, I guess what's the reason?
Because when I met you, I think everybody, 99% of this area knows what Bi-County Ambulance is. Nobody really knows, right? Not just the history, but the guy that's now responsible for that.
Yeah.
What kind of person is he? Because if you only see the ambulance and it's like when you only see a cop, you don't know. He's got a family.
Yeah.
You're a family man. You got 5 kids. You got a story. And it's like, to me, it's like we need to know that about business. You're a local business, right? You know, Bi-County isn't doing stuff in L.A., right?
No,
and so probably wouldn't want to be honest.
Holy smokes. Yeah, that'd be wild. Yeah.
And so I wanted people, because after I met you, I said, I got to get him in a podcast. I mean, I love the story about your dad starts out. He doesn't even have a personal vehicle. He's driving an ambulance and dating your mother.
Oh, yeah.
That is such a classic story, but it talks about the roots of what it takes to have a vision or dream and put wheels on it, literally, and go for it. And it might mean that you have to have some sacrifices in your family. And I'm sure with 5 kids, because you kind of went through your dad's sacrifices, that you've been careful.
Yeah, I've tried. It's tough, because my wife, both her parents, worked for the state. And so it was initially really tough to understand where I'm like, Mom, I'm not going to be home.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you said you'd be home at 5. And I'm like, yep, I know. And you can't call me again because I'm working, And
I love her. We're getting her in, Kurt. Well, she's coming in next.
It's kind of wild because I have a lot of people that kind of look at me like, oh my gosh. I go, my wife puts up with a lot, but it's if there's an issue, and you call me twice, somebody's hurt or something's like the house is on fire. Because if not, I'll call you back. That's what the missed call, like, oh, I'll get back to you. And so it was tough learning curve for us, especially young.
To make that adjustment.
And, anytime someone called in sick, I'm the last one. And if I don't go, it's not covered. So I have to go, kind of thing. And I'd be like, hey, I know we planned on, I remember, we were going to go to Chico for the day. And we made it to like the After Bay. And it was like, hospital's on diversion. We need more. And I go, oh, sorry, and I spun around. And I go, that's how it goes. We were doing 4th of July at her parents' house when we had that horrible firework incident at Ellis Lake.
Oh, yeah.
And I wasn't supposed to go on until 11, but now it's like, hey, we have fireworks that are going off. We have multiple injured patients. And so it was like, well, I literally lit one firework and I said, oh, I love you. I have to go, and that's just, it was one of those things to grow up with. I do, hey, when it's time for family time, I'm all in. But they know, like, there's no phones at the table at dinner. And you have to sit down and we eat dinner together. And then they go, you got your phone? I go, well, mine's different. I'm not looking at something. But if it rings, I got to answer it. It's not an option.
I was in a restaurant, and I've been married 53 years. And we met in the military. We were both in the military during Vietnam. And somebody said, how does this work? And that many years. And I said, well, I make sure that she has everything she needs. Not everything she wants.
Yeah.
But I make sure that she doesn't have that there isn't anything that she needs. The other side is she lets me be me.
Yeah.
I go do things because I have to do them. I was a pastor for a number of years, and it's like this. I'm doing this. I'm 75. I'm still working, right? And it's like so. I get to be me, and she's very gracious and kind to let me do that. But I make sure that her needs are met. Not always her wants, but her needs are met, right? And so some guy got up at the table. We were at a restaurant, and he gets up and he goes, I hope you don't mind I was eavesdropping. He said, I'm going to go home and tell my wife that. And so now you're just saying basically the same thing.
Yeah.
My family's not going to not have their needs met. But if you let me be me,
Yeah.
we're all going to be right. And I think for men, we want to know we're supported. And I don't know of anything more valuable than that. I've done 30 years of marriage counseling. And, the wife will say, well, I don't feel like he loves me. If I unwind that thing, it's because she doesn't recognize how important she is. And she's the reason he does things he does. Once they get that ironed out, and then once she says, well, whatever you're going to do, honey, I'm behind you. Men just thrive. They're like, you got to be kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's like that, was it 38 Special song? Or where can I find a woman like that? Whoever does it. You think I'd know that. But anyway, so I have a gift for you.
Oh, wow.
You can only get this
That is amazing.
by being in the tank. Wait a minute. This is not the in the tank one, Kurt.
Uh-oh.
What is it? Well, this is symbolic.
Yes.
I'm going to give you this
I
one.
appreciate
but you
it.
actually get one like this. I'll get it in the office.
No, that's amazing. Thank you.
But you can only get that. I'll give you two.
Yeah, that's awesome. We live on coffee at the office.
I
In
bet.
fact, it's the graveyard shift is to make coffee at 6 a.m. just so you have the first pot ready when everybody comes in. I mean,
Where's that at?
Right here. Come to my office. We drink Folgers, and I drink it black. And
So, all right, I'm going to ask that because we're going to run out of time. So, you're in the office your dad had.
yeah.
So, am I wrong to think that's the building where the ambulances are parked when they're not
Yeah.
out doing that? And that's where the maintenance is done and everything? So, your dad had the foresight to realize we're going to need enough space to do all this stuff for
and
that company.
Sometimes stuff just comes out, right? Like happenstance. So we were actually just a couple doors down, and then it was the corner building, and it was larger, and it just came up, and it was a deal you couldn't turn down. And in fact, we have a large bay, and we've now, it's got a place for all of our staff to come in and put their equipment and everything else. But it's where he parked a helicopter, and where my ambulances are parked now out on the pad was a helipad.
Wait, you guys had a helicopter too?
We didn't. The guy before us did, but we would have CHP. We would have CHP land there once a year so that we could keep it certified as a helipad for if we ever did, up until I think like 2002, 2003. And then we're like, we're not getting a helicopter. We're not. That's not our path kind of thing.
Well, no, you got reach and you got, the air ambulances, right? That's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole different ball of wax.
And so I could see. So there are some things where even though that little entrepreneurial itch is in you, you're a little bit more like, I'm not just going to jump on everything just because it sounds good. Doesn't mean I'm going to go do it.
It's tough because the last few times my accountant was like, are you just not busy enough? What the heck's wrong with you kind of thing? And I go, well, it just sort of kind of fell into place, and it made sense. But a big focus of ours now just for Bi-County is recruiting local as much as we can. So we've gone really heavy into going to any kind of school or community function just so kids can see it and think, hey, maybe I can do it. Yeah. And I almost started a paramedic school when COVID hit because we all got hit with a shortage of staff. Starting one now is a lot different than starting one in 1988. There's a couple of rules and regulatory authorities that have been added to the mix since then. But we are focused on expanding and hopefully expanding the EMT programs to not just be at Yuba College, which, please go do that if you think you want to help somebody. But I actually have a high school we're finalizing. I think they have enough interest that maybe we'll be able to offer a spring 1 semester EMT course at the high school. We're working out just the insurance piece, right? You got to ask all the other guys, hey, can this happen? As an EMT school, with it's fine. But if we have high school kids that are under 18, 17-year-olds, we've got to make sure that, that's all doable. And so the state signed off on it. I'm waiting for the insurance bean counters to sign off on it. But then that's kind of our focus. I've actually, I have a very robust training program that we've put a lot of effort and time and money into. And one of the things that I've been just preaching is I want I want 1980s BLS because that's before you ever had ALS. And so basic life support versus advanced. And it was get your hands dirty, you know, and I was like, you don't have to put your mouth on the mouth to mouth part. But I want us to get up to that point where it's back to ingrained, because we do have so much technology. We kind of rely on the technology a little heavy sometimes. And you know, it's sometimes you need to play by ear and identify some of those basics rather than, no, the machine says it's good. I'm like, well, is it connected right? Is it this? You got to be able to do big sick, little sick. And so we've been doing a lot of like 15 minute rapid trainings and focus on, you know, everything's data now. So we can actually pull reports and go, hey, our airway protocols and our video laryngoscopes, and we have recordings and all this is showing that you have a miss here, so we can focus. But retention and recruitment for our locals is going to be our big push for not just this year, but all of next year and the following, because we're just not getting, it's not the same as it was. You're not putting out the same amount of students and all of that. So
we need to do a TV program together.
Oh yeah, I'd love to.
Come on, wouldn't that be cool? Because we could do. One of the chief of police said to me, "Listen, why don't you do a program where you do a ride along?
Oh yeah,
and we'll do the karaoke thing."
Right?
I said, "Are you serious?" He said, "Oh, it'd be fun." I said, "Okay, but what about if something happens?" "Well, I'll shoot that too." Right? And it's like, listen, man, Alex, you're a great dude. I really thank you for coming in and doing this. You know, I know that when I went back in the military, every soldier now has an IFAC, an individual first aid kit. And so they are learning, you know, more and more. And these are not your medics. These are just, you know, you learn how to do this. It's soldier care, self-care, soldier care. And so there's a lot of that. Then they have a combat course where you actually, you know, learn, okay, these are the kind of wounds you would see in combat. And so they have that. So the military more is moving. And it has made me wonder, to be very honest. Those IFACs are like $40. Why couldn't we do a video showing how to use an IFAC?
Yeah.
Could you imagine every family had an IFAC in their car? I mean, it's just something that you can, because first aid's important.
First aid's critical.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm the worst at it because they're like, "Where's your first aid kit?" And I was like, "I got duct tape. You know, figure this out."
Listen, I have a group I take out, and we call them ouch pouches. So they just told me they're going to do an inventory on our ouch pouches to make sure everything's in them.
Oh, sure.
But they're, you know, your typical, you know, a little bit better than a little plastic, right? They're more militaristic in nature, but yeah.
No,
anyway,
we could totally do that. I appreciate it, and we'd love to. I could get.
So can you sing before we do karaoke in the ambulance?
You don't want me singing. No, there's certain things I know my limitations. No. It's never going to be in my business ventures.
Okay, folks, you're never going to get Fish and Alex karaokeing in the ambulance. That's never going to happen.
But I don't think we'd get the views.
But he would get his guys to do, you know, some first aid stuff.
Absolutely.
We might, you know, talk more about that. Listen, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed this. Next time that you're thinking about Bi-County Ambulance, and you know, maybe you hear one go by. I heard one this morning. You know, you'll think that there was this guy, and he decided years ago we needed that, and it needed to be better. And it should be comforting to you and to me to know Alex has taken over, and he wants to make it better. I just love it. It's going to get better. Like, subscribe, comment. Share. Thanks, Kurt. This has been In the Tank with Fish with my guest, Alex Bumpus from Bi-County Ambulance. God bless you guys. Thanks for watching.